first, started at the first season to go. You can do it. So you can think about that while I do the rest of this. Okay. All right, it's 6:30, and we're getting ready to get our, what month is it? June monthly Planning Commission meeting underway. First order of business is to welcome 2 new commissioners. We have 2 new county appointees, one Karen Willie, right? Willie, county appointee replacing Jim Denny. So she is brand new today and is just, that smile on her face is gonna stay there all night, I'm sure. So welcome, Commissioner Willie. And Lynn Herod, also a county appointee. Welcome to you, and I think Commissioner Herod, you'll have the pleasure of excusing yourself for part of your first meeting, which we do to all school district employees. But welcome, and thanks for being here. Thanks to both of you for being willing to spend the time you're about to spend over the next 3 or maybe 6 years with us. So, okay, well, let's get into our agenda. Before we get into the applications on our agenda, we have some housekeeping issues that we always take care of. The first being last month's minutes. We were given a draft of those minutes in our report. We've had time to review them. Are there any changes needed to the minutes or a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
A motion to approve. Second from Commissioner Carpenter. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, raise your hand. All those abstaining? Okay, 3. So 6 to 0 to 3. Abstentions from Commissioner Willie, Commissioner Butler, and Commissioner Herod. Okay, communications, or I'm sorry, committee reports. Reports from any committees that commissioners serve on. Vice Chair Kelly.
I have a short report on the Horizon 2020 Steering Committee that met, is that this week, earlier this week? We received some early drafts of what the format of the report will look like. I think those are very favorably reviewed, and so we continue to make progress on that. And then we also took a look at the policy around growth and had some good discussion on that. I think the committee felt like we need to go back maybe to the city and county commissions to make sure that our charge is still remaining the same and we're still within our charge. So that's probably going to happen, I think, at this point. And then we'll continue to move forward on that work.
Okay. Any other committee reports? All right, it's summertime, so nobody likes to have committee meetings, but we press on here. Okay, let's do communications. We have written communications from the public that were in our packet, which was posted and updated today. Any additional communications we don't know about, Scott? Okay. Any written communications from staff or other commissioners that aren't in the packet already?
We'll just have Sheila touch upon this item B for you,
Mhm.
since it's a little bit unique. I've never seen this before.
We get a notice of a vacation hearing before the county commission for green space. Sheila.
Right, you have this map and the memo in your packet, and basically, the city had acquired sanitary sewer easement and pedestrian easement to build a trail through Baldwin Creek. And in the design, there were some changes to where the path would go so that we could minimize creek crossings. And so there's some vacation of some of that pedestrian easement, and there's been additional vacated. Well, because it's in the unincorporated part of the county, that vacation goes to the Board of County Commissioners, and as part of the requirements to do that, they set a hearing, and they have to provide formal notice to the Planning Commission, so you have been served.
Okay. And we don't have to take any action?
You do not
We
have,
just-
except to acknowledge that there's a hearing July 6th.
Okay. Sure, the minutes will reflect that we've been notified or served. Thank you, Sheila. Any written action on waiver requests or determinations by the city engineer? Okay, none. Disclosure of ex parte communications. This is the chance for commissioners to let us know if you've had any discussions regarding any of the items on our agenda tonight. If you have, let us know, not just the fact that you had the discussion, but the content of that discussion, so that we can all benefit from whatever the discussion was. Any ex parte communications? Yes. Commissioner Von Auken.
I had a call from Scott Zaremba on item number 3. He had concerns about the access of the school buses on and off 23rd Street, and I encouraged him to come tonight to express his concerns, so hopefully he will.
Okay. I see him ready to express his concerns, so
Uh,
I'm sure we'll hear. Any other ex parte communications? Okay. Any abstentions tonight? Vice Chair Kelly.
I'm going to abstain on item number 3. The applicant is my employer, Lawrence Public Schools, and don't want to pose any conflict of interest there.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Harrod.
Same.
Okay. Any other abstentions? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on with our agenda. Election of officers for 2016 through 2017. We are accepting nominations for chair and then vice chair, and we'll do chair first. I'd like to nominate our vice chair, Commissioner Kelly, for chair for this next year. Working with Patrick over the last year and talking about meetings and preparation for our agenda every month. It's obvious that he's going to do a great job, that he was probably better prepared for it a year ago than he is now after, listening to me talk for so long. But I think Patrick will do a great job, and I look forward to efficient and effective meetings for the next year, hopefully with Patrick gaveling us in and out. And I think I need a second for that nomination.
Second.
Commissioner Culver seconds. Any discussion on the nomination or other nominations? Seeing none, all those in favor of Commissioner Kelly as our next chair, raise your hand. Unanimously elected chair. Congratulations, Patrick.
Thank you very much.
Here's this gavel that you get to use.
Very good.
Yeah.
I get to trade you, Clay, for your service.
Oh, boy.
Can you settle down a little bit? For your service as our chair, you've done an outstanding job and kept us on task, but also smiling the whole time. Clay's got a great wit about him, and we'll enjoy that. All the rest of your new commissioners will get to hear that. So, Clay, on behalf of all of us in the planning department, thank you very much.
Thanks, Patrick. Appreciate it. This one's fancy, but I can't actually use it to hit anything. Awesome.
That's on
Well,
purpose.
thank you. As Patrick is about to find out, this is a very easy job. And I'm not being sarcastic, because we have great staff who will lead you through everything. We also have great commissioners who will do all the hard work of figuring out what to do with applications that come before us. And I found that the more I tried to do something, the more I just got in the way of the smart people who had good ideas that I just needed to listen to. So I hope our meetings were efficient, and I hope that when we needed to take time to talk about something more, we did, and that when it started to feel like a waste of time, that we moved on. And I'm confident that Patrick will be better able to recognize the distinction between those two situations than I was. So it was a real pleasure, and I look forward to my last year on the commission, which is a weird thing to contemplate. But so thank you very much, and thanks for being commissioners with me.
Nice job, Clay. Sweet. All right, we'll move on with our meeting, and our next, and my first role as chair, is to take nominations for our vice chair for the coming year. So I'll open it up to nominations now. Commissioner Culver?
I'd like to nominate Commissioner Struckoff
As vice chair?
Thank you.
Second.
Second, Butler. Any discussion or other nominations? Seeing none, with all those in favor, raise your hand. Go for it. It passes unanimously. Congratulations, Eric. All right, and that will move us into our agenda for this evening. For those of you who have not been to a planning commission meeting, and those of you who have, as a reminder, how we operate is that we will start with a report from staff on each one of the items. We have received, and it's been posted to the internet, a written report. Staff will then go over that report. Then the applicant will have time to make comments. After that, we open it up for a public hearing. Most of our items are public hearing items. We do have one that's not, but I think we will use the opportunity to hear from the public on that item tonight. We do ask that if you have any comments you'd like to make, if you're an individual, we hold you to 3 minutes, and if you represent a group, 5 minutes. At that point, we'll close the public hearing, bring it up here for questions from staff or the applicant or any members of the public. We do ask that if we open it up to members of the public and we have a question, that you keep it to the question that we asked, so we're not reopening accidentally the public hearing again. Then we'll have discussion and eventually take a vote on each item. So with that in mind, our first item is item number 2, moving from RM32 to GPI, 0.78 acres at 1220 Oriad Avenue. Jeff, yes,
You might just remind that item number 1 was withdrawn prior to the meeting,
thank you, yes.
just in case.
In case you thought we didn't know what we were doing, item number 1 was withdrawn. Thanks, Scott.
Good evening. Jeff Crick with the City County Planning Office. Item before you this evening for 1220 Oriad is a rezoning, which is 1600145. To give you an idea of where it's at, it kind of looks like that. It's the little blue dot on the map there, but to give you probably a better example of where it is, it's the water tanks on top of Mount Oriad there next to the Adams Alumni Center, kind of hemmed in between that and ECM with the parking garage on the side there. Site is about 0.78 acres and is currently zoned RM32. The application this evening is to take that and rezone it to GPI, which is the general public and institutional zoning category. And you can also see there, site is currently comprised of 2 water tanks, one built 1931, the other one 1954, and a little pump station that is currently on the site today. Kind of going back into history with the water tanks, we tried to figure out, we knew one was built 1931, which is lovingly named Hoover. The other one's named Ike because of the administrations they were built under. But we went back into the history books and discovered that in 1897, the Sanborn map, there was already a standpipe there on the site. That kind of became significant to us because that would predate all existing zoning codes the city of Lawrence has ever had. So from the time that the tank was probably first there at some point in time to when Ike and Hoover have been established, that site has been zoned as an apartment use in some shape or form under multiple different zoning codes. So in 1966, when it was RD, it was converted in 2006 to RM32 with the adoption of the Land Development Code. So the GPI zoning, the General Public Institutional, is a special purpose district that has intended kind of very specific uses, mainly for government or utility installations in schools and parks and things like that. So it's a very finitely drawn zoning district which the water tanks would fit within. And to give you an idea of the proposed site plan, it would be 2 tanks, about 875,000 gallons each, with a booster pump station, which, if you look at it today, it's almost going to be identical in the configuration that you see there right now. This item has gone before the Board of Zoning Appeals previously for some variances to the site area and the setbacks to the site there. The zoning code specifies IBP zoning setbacks for a GPI district, and when you look at the IBP's zoning, it's a very large zoning setbacks that occur. Some of them are up to 40 feet, excuse me, they're all up to 40 feet there. So in a site of this dimension, it just simply wouldn't be in place there. It would have no buildable area left over. And that Board of Zoning Appeals did approve this with a condition that the zoning be approved by the City Commission before the variances would be approved also. So that is kind of hinged on the rezoning case before you this evening. With all that said, staff does recommend the approval of the requested zoning to GPI for this area. And with that, I'd be glad to stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Jeff. We may have some questions here in a little bit. But now we'll hear from the applicant. Do we have a representative of the applicant here?
Good evening. I'm Philip Shashelski, Assistant Director for the Department of Utilities. With respect to the rezoning application, I really have not much to add other than what's been in the staff report and what Jeff has presented. I'd be happy to answer questions regarding the technicalities of the project if those come up down the road or as part of the discussion. But the department believes that's, going from the RM32 to the GPI is the appropriate, put that under the appropriate zoning for the continued use as a water utility facility.
Thank you. At this point, we'll open it up to public hearing. Any of you here to speak on item number 2? All right, we'll close the public hearing and bring it up to the commission for questions, comments, or motions.
I just have one question. Why did it take 89 years to ask to zone this to be a public property when it's always been public property?
It's the redevelopment of it that's triggering our look at all this.
I'd like to make the motion that we approve the request to rezone the 0.78 acres from RM32 multi-dwelling residential district to GPI general public and institutional use district based on the findings presented in the staff report, and forwarding it on to the City Commission with a recommendation for approval.
Thank you, Commissioner Carpenter. Do we have a second? Commissioner Struckoff seconds. Any other comments, discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, raise your hand. Passes 9-0. Well, that ends my term. Very briefly, as chair, I'm now going to hand it over to our vice chair, Commissioner Struckoff, to continue on with item number 3.
Item number 3 is a request from USD 497 for a fleet vehicle storage facility on East 23rd Street. Mary Miller is making the presentation.
Good evening, I'm Mary Miller, one of the current planners with the Douglas County Lawrence Planning Office. This is a rezoning request from the GPI district to the IG district for approximately 7 acres located at 711 East 23rd Street. It's shown here on this location map. There's a highlighted area just to the northeast. The following item is also rezoning in the same area, so I just wanted to point out that we have 2 rezonings in about the same area. The subject property has been used as the Douglas County Public Works Facility and also as the Household Hazardous Waste Facility. Those have both been relocated and the facility is now vacant. And USD 497 would like to consolidate their facilities and operations here, as well as perhaps move their school bus fleet here. The facilities in operation would be allowed under the current zoning, but fleet storage is not, and therefore, to accommodate that new use, it would need to be rezoned, and IG is an appropriate zoning district for that. We look at the various criteria for evaluating rezoning requests. These are commonly called the golden factors. The zoning in the area, the subject property is part of the Burroughs Creek corridor, and this is an area that's traditionally been industrial. It followed the trail. There was a railroad along Burroughs Creek Trail that's recently been abandoned, and that's turned into a linear park and a pedestrian bicycle trail. But it was a railroad, working railroad, and most of the properties along it were developed with industrial uses. This property was zoned industrially before the adoption of the 2006 code, when the zoning was changed to GPI, or General Public and Institutional. It's adjacent to the Haskell Indian Nations University, with a small area for the corridor, the linear park to the west. It has industrial zoning on the other sides, and we do have RS10, or low-density single-dwelling zoning, to the south. However, if you look at the land use to the south, is a small parcel that's owned by the city of Lawrence, and this has been developed with stormwater management treatments in order to filter the runoff from this property before it goes into the wetlands. And this has no frontage, it's not a developable lot, and it will stay under city ownership, and it will continue to filter the runoff. It may be less necessary when it's owned by the school district. They probably won't be storing salt and sand here, but the stormwater engineer indicated they would continue using it in that way. Based on the type of land uses in the area, there's primarily industrial land uses to the north, the east, Haskell Indian Nations University to the west across the park. And looking at the zoning, in staff's opinion, this rezoning request is compatible with the zoning and land uses in the area. Looking at the character of the area, this shows the Burroughs Creek corridor with the industrial uses. We have some residential uses to the south. Along 23rd Street, we have primarily commercial uses with some industrial uses interspersed. And then Haskell Indian Nations University is probably one of the most significant features of this neighborhood. And then to the west of that would be primarily residential. This land use map from the Douglas County Appraiser's Office provides a overview of the land use categories. This property is currently designated as industrial land use, and the pink shows the commercial land uses along 23rd Street. We have the purple that's interspersed throughout. The yellow is a residential, and then of course the blue is the Indian Nations University. And so the proposed zoning and proposed land use would be compatible with the character of the neighborhood. Other factors we look at is it compliant or conformance with the comprehensive plan and the area plans? Horizon 2020 identifies the Burroughs Creek corridor as an existing industrial area, and it recommends we retain established development and encourage new development in existing industrial and employment areas. And the Burroughs Creek corridor plan does not provide specific recommendations for particular properties. Most area plans, I could put up a map and it would show what they recommend for each parcel, but rather they recommended that underused parcels perhaps be redeveloped with commercial or neighborhood-friendly uses. This is not on the list of properties that the Burroughs Creek corridor plan recommended for rezoning, and it is going to be used in a similar fashion, so it wouldn't be really considered a redevelopment. It's going to be more of a continued use. We also look at, will there be potential detrimental effects on nearby properties? The properties to the east have relatively industrial zonings and uses. One of the property owners did contact us and inquired on the project, and they indicated they had no concerns. To the west, we have the university, most of their open space and their playing fields, and you can see it is separated by the vegetated linear park for the Burroughs Creek Trail. One possible detrimental effect there could be on neighboring properties would be the increased traffic with the school buses. There'll be a lot more traffic, especially during the peak morning and afternoon hours. With the site plan, we have a traffic impact study that will tell us the number of vehicles they expect and the routes they expect them to take to and from the property. And with that, the city engineer will determine if there's any improvements needed to the adjacent road network. Is the use feasible? Or are there any intersection improvements necessary? And so these would be dealt with at the site planning stage. And so staff's opinion, there would be no detrimental effects on nearby properties with this rezoning. Other things we look at is what is the suitability of the property to the uses to which it's restricted. It's very well suited to the uses to which it's restricted. Most of the uses are allowed in both the GPI and IG district. We're just adding the fleet storage use. The length of time the subject property has been vacant as zoned. The Public Works facility has moved, but they've basically taken all their equipment with them within the last year, so this hasn't been vacant that long. And a comparison of the effects of denial. If we denied the rezoning request, the school district would not have this location. It's a more central location. Right now, they're located up by the hospital in the northern part of the town. It would not allow them to locate all their facilities in this one more central location. And if we look at what the possible benefits to the public health, safety, and welfare would be by denial, there's none that are identified, as the effect of the additional traffic would be handled and mitigated if necessary with the site plan. So we see no benefit to the public health or safety by the denial of this rezoning request. And so staff recommends forwarding the rezoning request to from GPI to IG to the City Commission with a recommendation for approval. And I believe the applicant is present, and
Thank you, Mary. If the applicant would care to make any comment? Anything to add to Mary's presentation?
Mr. Chairman and Board, my name is Dan Harden. I work with BG Consultants, and we represent the client in this particular matter. I don't have any thing to add to the report. I'm just basically here as a resource if you have any questions during the subsequent discussion this evening.
I do have one question before you go. Are there other fleet storage facilities for the district in Lawrence? And
I'm not familiar with where
Okay.
all they are.
At this time, we'll open up the public hearing. If there's any member of the public who would care to comment on this item, please step to the microphone and sign in your name.
Good evening. I'm Scott Zaremba.
I was told you'd be here.
Pardon?
We were told you'd be here.
And I am here. And thank you for Commissioner Van Auken for prompting me to come, because truthfully, hesitant to come on an issue like this, because this is quasi-self-serving. I am the current leasee for the school district through First Student, who rents property from us, which is, they've been at our facility for going on 21 years. And as our director will tell you, I'm the last one that wants to see us not improve and move forward. And I am all about change and improving things, and I wholeheartedly believe in infill and cleaning up some things we have in our city, and this is one of the locations that can be improved dramatically. There's only one issue, and that is ingress and egress. And as I read through the report, it came down to, we'll mitigate it when the time comes. And I did not speak up at another, it was a competitor that built a facility down the street from one of mine, and I let it go through its normal process. And today I watch wrecks at that facility time and time again because we mitigated it after the fact. And so with this and looking at what the potential is for ingress and egress in this site, it is not built in order to have more or less the buses move back and forth across the street. The majority of them will go west out of the facility, as they do out of our facility today, but our facility is on the east side, it's on the west side. And so it creates a plethora of conflicts. The streets that lead to it are only, what's a street, 30 foot? What's a normal street curb cut that we have today? Are they 30?
27.
Yeah, and so they're 27 feet. I went and stepped them off. I thought it was 30. And what we developed 21 years ago when we made the facility for the buses, we have 50 foot with heavy radiuses to make sure that we took care of the ingress and egress for the buses so there wasn't conflicts. And in the 21 years that they've been there, we have not had any incidents of a wreck on the street because of somebody coming or going off the property, because we've made the ease. And it was not easy at the time to get that done. In fact, Therese could tell you, we had lots of comments about it at the time to try to get it done. And one of the reasons I pushed for it was to make sure we had safety. Just because it's there doesn't mean it's the right place to put things if they're not built properly. And looking at the facility and looking what they can do, I think that needs to be addressed before we move to the next step. I don't like when we approve things and then mitigate them after the fact. It's not what we've done in any of the developments that we've been involved with. And I hope we don't do that again in this case, trying to put a square peg in a round hole. after the fact, we can get it done, we can make it work, but it's not going to be the safest thing that we can do in the community. There's got to be a better spot. And I'm not against moving, because I know at some point they're going to want to own their own facility, and I have no problem with that at all. I just want to make sure we do it right and we improve what we're doing and we don't go backward. And when I look at the facility, being in the business for the last 35 years, it does not have good ingress and egress in order to be a bus facility. Any questions for me?
Seeing none, we do.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public care to speak on this item?
Good evening. My name is Marcia Heeb. I live at 2134 Leonard Avenue. That is 2 blocks across the street from 711 23rd Street. I come tonight with concerns about the staff report regarding this rezoning because I don't think that it takes into full consideration the residential neighborhood to the north and west of this property. I have some information for the commission. I'm not sure if I can submit it now for you to look at later. I have some very specific questions about the report itself. Specifically, the zoning, I think, doesn't adequately describe the homes in that Barker neighborhood. It's actually not even in the description that is in this report. It's completely absent from that. I also believe the character of the neighborhood is not adequately described. There are no references to that residential area in that section either. I think that as developed, this property cannot be compliant with the borough's corridor ideas because these definitely will have impacts on our neighborhood. The ingress and egress is exactly right. You cannot get west onto 23rd Street from this location without going underneath the street and back onto Leonard Avenue, which is a residential street. And so there would definitely have to be mitigations. So if that's of a concern, it should be maybe addressed beforehand. So could I give you my ideas in some way? Like, I don't know if that goes under
I think if you
communication.
could,
Yeah, you can
Perhaps
hand us
Scott
your
could-
communications there. Unfortunately, cannot view them right now, but we can pass those on to the city commission.
Could I answer any questions or be more specific?
I have no questions for you, but thank you.
No? Okay, thanks.
Any other members of the public care to speak on this item? If not, then we'll bring it back up to the commission. Close the public hearing for discussion or questions or motions. Commissioner Van Auken?
Show us the route that the buses would presumably take. Could you show this on the screen?
They would have to develop their route. I know currently where they are, they don't allow turns across 23rd Street. So when they leave the facility, they mostly go west on 23rd. But to come back to the facility, they have to circle the area so that they're coming back on the north side of 23rd. They're not allowed to cross 23rd Street. So they don't have a route developed yet. They're just trying to get the zoning in place. And the next step then would be to develop a site plan and come up with their ideas. The TIS might indicate they need to have a route similar to the return route they have now, where now they leave on 23rd, but they come back behind, if you understand what I'm saying.
No.
Well, I don't have that aerial up, let's see. And what I was saying is this is their current location. And so they come out and they go this way in order to go east. But when they return, they don't come up 23rd, or they shouldn't come up 23rd and cross. Rather, they come up Harper and come down, so they're still making the right turns into this property. So they have to make their routes adjusted. So when they have this property, when they get to the site planning stage and they get ready to, they evaluate the traffic, that's when they would develop their route. And their TIS would tell us which directions are they planning on going, which route are they going to take. If they intend to go one way, they may need to make improvements to the roads or to the intersections. But we don't evaluate that at this stage. That would be requiring them to do the TIS and the site plan before they know if they even have zoning approval to consider what they want to do. And so we divide it into two phases. One is, would the proposed use be a use we could see in this area? And so then when they do their site plan, they're not guaranteed they're going to get that use. They need to do the TIS, see if it's feasible, and see what measures could be taken. And so we're not saying they're definitely going to be able to have fleet storage here. What we're saying is it would be possible with the new zoning, provided they can make it all work with their site plan.
And I understand what you're saying, but it seems to me that that puts us in a difficult spot, that we are asked to make a recommendation based on information that seems very important that we don't have. After getting Mr. Zarimba's call, I went out and drove around there because I couldn't understand on the phone what he was talking about. And they either have to go across 23rd or they go under the bridge and up to Larnard. And unless you take a very circuitous route, I don't see any other options that they have, and I don't know how that could be mitigated.
I think, Commissioners, I think it's reasonable to conclude that that's a possible route. Maybe the applicant's representative can speak to any knowledge he has on this issue. It's really their issue to resolve. A couple of things. One is that, yeah, I think the route to get west would go underneath 23rd Street over to Leonard Avenue, and then west on 23rd Street. Coming back, it's a little bit easier to get off 23rd into the site. And so then we would require that the traffic study address specifically those intersections to 23rd Street that they would be using to determine if they have enough length and capacity and to look at the safety aspects of them. I think the other thing to consider is that this particular property works with IG zoning in any event, whether this is the project or another project, just from what we've analyzed and reviewed with the project. So those would be my comments. You might ask the applicant for more information on the school bus routes.
Well, the applicant actually hasn't really discussed this with us because of the sequencing of events. The site plan, the traffic impact study is a part of the site plan, and they're really not interested in incurring those costs with us until this matter gets resolved, because if it doesn't pass tonight, then they would have basically made expenditures that have no value to them. So their strategy, and almost all clients' strategies, is they'll wait until the zoning gets resolved, and then they move to the site plan phase just to manage their costs.
Well, do you have enough familiarity with traffic and turn radius requirements of school buses to say if any of this would work right now?
Well, the Public Works Department had some vehicles that were considerably larger than school buses, and they had they basically used that as a cloverleaf, that traffic configuration, the street configuration. Public Works Department's a little different arrangement because they tend to work throughout the day rather than a concentrated time. But the Douglas County Public Works Department was able to operate out of that site through that quasi-cloverleaf arrangement there that's you can see on the aerial. And I would, that's probably the one, well, I'm sure that's one of the options that the district would be interested in looking at. A school bus turning radius template is very similar. Actually, it's probably smaller than a lot of the public works trucks that they use. There's just more of them, I think, is the Public Works Department has a limited. They probably had 8 or 10 dump trucks and a low boy oil distributor and that kind of stuff. It's not like a fleet of school buses. So the number of turning movements would be less. And that's what we get into with the, they will probably think about how to manage their operation. I mean, are they going to just serve the community south of 23rd, maybe another series of routes north of 23rd? That may be a strategy that they would, they have to, once they get past, if this is approved, then they have to start thinking about, okay, yeah, we have to think about traffic now and how are we going to do that? And I think they probably already have. I mean, they wouldn't have gotten this far. They just haven't shared that information, at least with me,
And follow up. So you said they use this as a kind of a cloverleaf. So are you saying that when they would go west on 23rd, they'd go under the overpass and go up to Larned?
Yeah, that was my understanding. I mean, the Public Works Department they would come out and go under Larned. Well, before they had a bigger bridge than they have now, too. See, that's another factor that the old bridge that was just replaced here, I don't know what, 4 or 5 years ago, was sized to accommodate trains. So the current structure there's sized to accommodate basically more smaller vehicles. It's basically it's not for trains any longer. So that's one of the things we have to evaluate in the turning movement template. I mean, how high is it? Is it high enough to get the bus under? Is there enough room to lay the template out on the ground on the other side? But you're right. If they can get through there, then they go west, and they have a right turn on 23rd Street to go west, and then they would. Coming home, they would do the same thing. They'd come back if they could. See, they have this business of crossing 23rd Street, so that they may have to come in from the east side doing that too. That's another option. And there's a lot of options that they have to consider, and they have to give us some guidance so we can do if we're going to do a traffic impact study. I mean, which options are you really interested in, and which are not options that you're interested in. I mean, as an operator, they've got to, and I think they probably, sitting around the boss's office in the morning drinking coffee, have probably talked about that stuff. They just haven't talked to me about it.
Further questions? Commissioner
Thank
Britton.
Just a question for staff. I was wondering if you could just remind us of the site plan approval process, how that works, and how traffic is considered. I know we've mentioned it a little bit. I'm just looking for the big picture.
Yeah, so the site plan process is administrative if the zoning is approved by the city commission, and that's a process that notice is sent out to property owners within 200 feet of the subject site, and then there's an appeal opportunity for owners to protest, and that appeal then would go to the city commission. And so there's some different avenues there. And within that is the traffic impact study that we look at. And I know a lot of times we talk about roads and the impact to traffic, but we design roads to handle traffic. So, I would be surprised that there wasn't a solution from a traffic standpoint on roads that were intended to handle traffic. And so, but part of that process is the city engineer and traffic engineer looking at the impact to the intersections of 23rd Street, like Dan said, the height of the bridge, the width of the road, the turning radius of the buses and different things. But we would anticipate that the public roads would be used to support an operation, whatever operation goes in this property here.
And correct me if I'm wrong, one of our options is we could require the site plan to come through the planning commission if we wanted, couldn't we? Or have we done that in other situations?
In very rare instances, there's been a recommendation on the zoning that goes to the city commission for approval to bring the site plan to one of the two bodies, planning commission or city commission.
Mm-hmm.
But sort of a parallel process to the administrative appeal process we have.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks.
Any further questions? Commissioner Carpenter.
The site plan, if the notice only goes out 200 feet, it's not going to even hit the corner lot on Leonard and 23rd Street. Is this one of these cases that we could expand the required notice area because that intersection of Leonard and 23rd is certainly going to be implicated in any site plan as far as the traffic, but they're outside the 200-foot notice area. So is there,
I think you could do that by simple direction to us, and we'll do courtesy notice. I don't think it necessarily needs to be a zoning condition that runs with the land, but it could be, and then we could attach that to the zoning ordinance. And
I'm so familiar with this by walking the trail
sure.
quite often and riding my bike through there and driving through there in every possible configuration. And I'm having a hard time seeing, I don't know how the trucks made that turn off of the road, perimeter road on the north of 23rd, that left turn onto Bernard to make it to 23rd Street. That's a tight corner, and that's a little nerve-wracking just in a car, because people turning right off of 23rd, going west on 23rd and turning right onto Bernard take that corner pretty fast. So that's a danger point. So some major reconfiguration is going to have to happen there, and I can even see that you're going to end up recommending a four-way traffic light at that intersection if you're going to take school buses through there safely. I know they won't have children on them yet, but still, these are big, and they're going through at the times that 23rd Street is backed up. And lots of rear-end collisions happen on that street through there. My daughter was in one of those in the past, and the cars come over that hill down that bridge to the other entrance that's closer to the other end, just north of the property, farther down 23rd. You can't see them. The cars coming east in the morning are blinded by the glare of the sun. So I think there are a lot of considerations for safety and traffic in there. And, you know, now I understand that, you know, it's feasible for people that want to develop property. They want the zoning first before they look at these other issues. But this is a type of situation that I think it's kind of odd to try. It's almost like putting the cart before the horse. You want to purchase a property and rezone it before you know if you can even use it for what you want to use it for. But, you know, I think this area is great for buses if they can work that out. I mean, it was a hazardous waste storage area. It's already set up to contain any problems you could have from fleet storage. It makes a lot of sense. But when this whole area was redone just recently with the bridge, it didn't correct some of those problems, and you know, for the traffic. So I would like the opportunity to see that. You know, I think before we have a final approval or make, you know, an approved site, the rezoning conditioned on a feasible site plan or something, because I think the people that have brought up the issue of traffic are right on. And I think that we need to know that this can be done safely, both to the traffic traveling on 23rd and to the school buses.
Any further discussion? Commissioner Wood.
So if we were to approve the rezoning and then the traffic study comes forward, is there a chance for public comment already built into that system for the traffic study specifically with the site plan?
There would be, yes.
So we could be comfortable saying whether or not this land use is appropriate and making our decision based on that, and then there will be further time for public comment then about the traffic issues.
There could be, yeah. And I'm not trying to discount a concern of zoning that you have with traffic impacts. I mean, that's one of the things we look at are the deleterious effects of any rezoning here. So, I mean, you also have the ability to seek more information on it before you render your recommendation to the city commission. And that would, of course, be in the form of putting the applicant to work on a little bit of a study of traffic and routes and seeing what that looks like at the end of the day.
Further discussion? Commissioner Britton.
I think I share Commissioner Carpenter's thought that this is the interesting, or maybe the exceptional situation where traffic really is driving. I mean, the reason we're doing zoning at all is because they want to have the fleet storage use, correct?
Correct.
And the issue with that is just the traffic impact, basically. So it is a little bit weird in this situation to try and separate the traffic impact from the use itself, because the only thing we care about with the use is the traffic impact. Although in most situations, I definitely see why we do the process the way that we do it. and not forcing applicants to go through all of the traffic impact study prior to obtaining zoning. I also agree with Commissioner Carpenter that the notice range is probably insufficient with this particular piece of property, and whether it is through just direction or request of staff to extend that notice to 1,000 feet or 500 feet or whatever would get enough of the neighborhoods nearby. I think we should definitely do that. In terms of the site plan approval process, I mean, I would be comfortable, I think, with approving zoning now, but conditioning site plan approval on a public hearing here. I think, and I imagine there may be some collateral consequences of that I'm not thinking of right now, but it does seem like if we were going to go ahead and approve the zoning now, with the traffic being really the driver, no pun intended, of the impact on the neighbors, that there should maybe be a little bit more of a hurdle to overcome or a process to go through than the normal administrative site planning process. So I'm interested in any additional thoughts that Scott or Mary might have on if we were to do it that way in this occasion, and if this qualifies as, the rare occasion that you mentioned where we've maybe done this in the past.
I mean, I think you're gonna, I believe the city commission will have the same concerns that you're reflecting, and so I think my preference would be to do more work on the traffic impacts and routing of buses before you make your recommendation to the city commission. That way, both commissions have the value of that information.
So a deferral.
So that would look like a deferral with bringing that information back to you next month, if possible.
Okay.
Quick question on that. Would that be a full traffic impact study that would also have determinations made by the city engineer?
I think that's what we would be looking for there, to study all the points. What a traffic study does is look at the points of impact. And we would look at that and the routing that they want to look at and propose, and then determine whether the streets are acceptable.
And my thoughts on that is, if we're going to go through that process and have all that information, I want it to be thorough, and that we can make a good recommendation at that time so that it doesn't delay it further.
Yeah, and I think, and Commissioner Britton, I think we've used that site plan to the planning commission when it's more of a site plan on site issue. This really is a trafficked, get it to the next intersection away, versus what the site. I don't think there's concern for a future site plan necessarily.
Gotcha.
Any further discussion? Well, I'd be entertaining Commissioner Britton.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, I think I would just be interested if there were any particular comments from the applicant regarding the prospect of a 1-month deferral. Doesn't seem like that should throw too much of a wrench in anything, but if there was something that was going to ruin in the process or something, I'd want to know about it.
There'll be no ruination.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Well, then I will move that we defer this for further consideration next month, pending a full traffic impact study and any recommendations on that from staff.
As well as notice to 1,000 feet?
Does 1,000 sound right? I mean, I'm terrible with how many.
As far as the notice, I would think that if it could go up, whatever that distance is, up Leonard to East 22nd Terrace, to pick up those first 3 properties that would be most directly impacted by any change in configuration.
That's great.
Do you think 1,000 gets us there, Scott?
We'll do whatever it takes to get us there.
Okay, yeah, then a motion to defer for a month pending a traffic impact study and extended notice to the surrounding neighborhoods.
We have a motion to defer item 3. Is there a second?
I would second that.
Commissioner Willie? Any further discussion on the item? Seeing none, all those in favor of deferring item 3 for 1 month, please raise your hand. Carries unanimously. Commissioner Vaughn?
I do have another question
I'm
about
sorry.
this item, though. Unrelated to traffic, it's more a point of curiosity, I think. It says to the south of this subject property, it's zoned RS10, and it's used for stormwater management, and it belongs to the city. Does this preclude it ever becoming a residential property? And if so, why are we not rezoning that?
It has no frontage on any street. It could become a residential property with a variance. It would have, but it would be very rare, and I can't imagine that we would recommend it, looking at its location. And it was to filter the water before it reached the wetlands. And so I think the goal is to keep it there. Even if it's fleet storage, there's going to be, if that goes through, there'd be a lot of oil and gas and any other industrial use that would be here, given its proximity to the wetlands. I think the city would just keep it that way. So there's nothing saying that it could never be sold. It belongs to the city, and the city could decide, we don't need to do that. Maybe the wetlands don't need this protection anymore. They could sell it back to the property owner to the east, and it could become a part of his lot. He could do a minor subdivision, but it could not be developed separately the way it is now.
Well, and I totally agree that it should be used in the way that it's used. I'm just kind of curious about the zoning, that it continues to have this residential zoning.
It's open space, and open space, I guess we could have rezoned it to open space. That would seem the most logical
Yeah.
zoning district. However, it's also allowed in that zoning district. So when a use is allowed in the zoning district, and you want to do that use, you don't usually go out and rezone it to another use, to another zoning. Because even if you zoned it to OS and you felt reassured it'll never be residential, it could always be rezoned back, things don't stay. So I think just stormwater management on a RS10 lot is permitted.
Okay, thank you. I was just kind of curious.
It's kind of like water towers being zoned for apartment buildings for 89 years.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Then with item 3 finished, let's welcome back our newest chair and newest commissioner to the Planning Commission bench. I hope so.
Sheila will whip him into shape.
The gavel's still warm, but the seat's not.
All right, item 4. Okay, we'll move on to item number 4, which is IG to CS, 1.5 acres at 706 East 23rd Street. Hello.
As I mentioned in my previous presentation, this property is just located northeast of the 7-Eleven property. And it was currently the Lawrence Lumber Yard. It was owned by people whose last name was Lawrence. And the lumber yard went out of business quite some time ago, and since then it's been used for various different businesses. It's been relatively underutilized, but by 2009 it was vacated. And so the applicant would like to put in a microbrewery. This is permitted in the current zoning. It's limited manufacturing and production, so it does not require rezoning. But along with that, he would like to have a tap room, which is classified as a bar or lounge, and also would like to have the sale of branded merchandise, T-shirts and other things for his brewery, and that would be considered general retail sales. And those two uses would require rezoning. The only zoning districts that would allow these 3 uses are the commercial. There'd be CD, CR, CC, and CS. CD is the downtown commercial. It's allowed only in the downtown area. CC is community commercial, and CR is regional commercial. And these are designated in our comprehensive plan for only certain intersections, and so this would not be appropriate. The CS is commercial strip, and we are allowed to extend commercial strip zoning. We don't zone new properties or create new commercial strips, but development code and the comprehensive plan do allow commercial strip zoning to be extended. The subject property is outlined. It's in the purple area surrounding Burroughs Creek corridor. It's in the industrial zoning. And the goal is to, or the request is to rezone that to commercial, which is what is to the east along 23rd Street. And this shows the land uses in the area. The land use to the immediate east is a car wash and a small equipment repair facility. Once again, we look at the character of the neighborhood. We have Haskell Indian Nations University as the most significant feature. We have the Burroughs Creek Linear Trail and K-10 providing transportation throughout the area. And this property is located along 23rd Street as part of this commercial industrial strip development. For the land uses, the Douglas County Appraiser's Office designates this use, the lumberyard use, as commercial. But this kind of shows the different land use types per their classification and how that breaks up in the neighborhood. We look at the compliance with the comprehensive plan and with area plans, and Horizon 2020 recommends we support infill redevelopment, which provides a range of uses that is consistent and compatible with established land use pattern. And as the Douglas County Appraiser's picture showed, there's quite a mix of uses in this area, and the proposal to develop this property with a mix of industrial and commercial uses would be compatible with that land use pattern. Horizon 2020 also recommends that strip commercial areas not be expanded into surrounding lower intensity zoning areas. For instance, if the request was to extend the commercial strip into residential, that would not be compliant. But as this is just being extended into industrial, we're not going into lower intensity areas. Once again, we look at possible detrimental effects on nearby properties. The use should have no detrimental effect. They share an access point with the car wash to the east. The applicant intends to have parking and an access drive along the west side and to install a secondary access on East 22nd. This would alleviate some of the traffic on 23rd Street. Most of the trucks would still use 23rd Street to come in, but that would allow it to be more of a one-way traffic through. And so staff did not identify any negative impacts on nearby properties with this rezoning request. We look at the suitability of the property to uses to which it's restricted, and as I mentioned, it has that one shared access on 23rd Street. With the industrial district, we have more larger trucks. With the lumber yard, you'd have large delivery trucks, and that one shared access may not be appropriate for that getting into the site. The length of time the subject property has been vacant is zoned. As I mentioned, it's been vacant or underutilized for quite some time, but it has been vacant since 2009. The comparison of the effects of denial: if we denied the rezoning, the applicant would need to look for another location for his business. And on the other side of that, we would not be able to reuse or more fully utilize this vacant property. And the effect of denial on the public safety, health, and welfare, there would be, staff did not recognize or identify any improvements to the public health, welfare, or safety by the denial of this rezoning request. And then compliance with area plans. This falls under the Burrow Creek Plan, which recommended that we reutilize underutilized properties, but with an eye to neighborhood-friendly development. And so when the site plan goes through, there would be buffering, there would be other provisions made to make it compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. And so staff's recommendation is to forward this rezoning request to the City Commission with a recommendation for approval. And the applicant is present today as well.
Thank you. The applicant like to speak, or their representative?
Hi, I'm Corey Johnson. I'm representing the Lockwood Craft Brewing Company, the applicant for the rezoning request. And didn't prepare any comments. I'm just going to make some general comments about the brewing industry and about this project a little more specifically. Craft beer, as we know it today, pretty much didn't exist 25 years ago. And today, or last year, in the $100 billion beer sales market, craft beer had a 20% share of that market. So in 25 years, it's come a long, long way with annual growth from 10 to 20%. And I'm sure you all know Free State Brewing, who was really a pioneer in the craft beer industry, and I think is an example of what a good community and citizen and a brewery can be in a town like Lawrence. And we'll we'll do our best to follow that model, and I think this location is very suitable for the manufacturing part as well as the retail and commercial part of the business that we propose here. And so I'm just available for any questions you all might have, unless Dean has something to add.
Good evening, Dean Grove with Grove Engineering. Just to follow up, I know there's always concerns from the last about rezoning. We did submit a special use permit and a preliminary plat today. So it's not just that we're up here asking for zoning and see what happens, go from there. That he's obviously very serious about this project, and we think its location is great. Good or bad, you'll see me back here in 2 months because that's for the special use for the production and manufacturing in a limited state is a special use under the CS zoning. So with that, I'll be back in 2 months to show you what we're doing. And I'll be happy to answer any questions if you got any.
Thank you. We may have some here in just a little bit. We'll open up the public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back up for the commission. Any questions? If no questions, oh, yeah.
Question about the entrance. At Ellie's, and I remember Lawrence Lumber there, was that the only entrance to Lawrence Lumber? Does anybody have recollection of that?
That is correct. There
If you'll,
is the
if you could
lot
do me a
doesn't-
favor, just step up to that microphone there. Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, the entrance onto 23rd Street is the only existing entrance. However, the lot extends to 22nd Street, and we propose to make an egress or ingress from 22nd Street as well.
There has always been a gate there. I think it was like a non-public entrance to the lumber yard. On 22nd. On the west side. Some of the older photos you can see up until 95, where they were still storing lumber and using that. But I think, again, it was not a main entrance. It was just as they were taking lumber trucks out.
Any other questions, commissioners? There's no other questions. I entertain Commissioner Britton. Well, I'll move that we recommend approval of the rezoning request for approximately 1.56 acres from IG district to CS district, forwarding it to the city commission with a recommendation for approval based on the findings of fact found in the body of the staff report. Motion from Commissioner Britton, second. Commissioner Struckoff will second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise their hands. Motion passes unanimously, 9-0. All right, we're moving on. Item number 5, a conditional use permit. Landfill at 1736 East 1550 Road. Welcome back.
Thank you again. As you may recall, this item was deferred from last month's Planning Commission meeting to allow us time to talk to the applicant about the truck route. And so we have met with them, and we're ready to present that today. The subject property is in the northeast part, just northeast of the city of Lawrence. It's in Grant Township, and it's shown here with the arrow, just south of Interstate 70. This shows the area that's proposed to be reclaimed with this CUP. The property, the lake was created by a sand pit when I-70 was originally developed. That was prior to our zoning regulations, so there was no CUP for that. We did have a CUP later for the stabilization of the banks. With the borrow pit here, that was in about 2009 and 2010. That was for the I-70 improvements. This should have had a CUP at that time, and the CUP would have looked at the reclamation, but for some reason there was no CUP submitted for that. And so now we're doing a CUP for, the use we're looking at is landfill to fill in and reclaim the borrow pit. The property primarily is zoned agriculture in this area. We do have I-1 to the west, but you can see the land use there is agricultural. There's some I-3, other county industrial zoning to the south, And this is all under the same ownership, and to the south, this is where their farm and their feedlot is operated. So the primary land use is agriculture in the area and open space for the large lake. There's also a cabin here at the lake for the property owner. And this shows the character of the area. It is primarily agriculture and open space. The applicant indicated they wanted to fill this area in. It's a depression that's very unusable. And so they just want to put in fill and make it a steady rise, kind of a steady slope going up to the north to improve the area. The area is primarily agriculture and rural, but we also have the urbanized portion of the city of Lawrence to the southwest. We look at the conformance with the comprehensive plan. A comprehensive plan doesn't really discuss CUPs, because these are basically seen as temporary uses. But we look at the Northeast Sector Plan, which is incorporated in the comprehensive plan. And the uses it recommends for this area are agriculture, which is the hatched area. The area that's hatched the other way is airport, and then the green is open space. And so filling this to a more level terrain would be in keeping with the open space and even the agricultural land use recommendations. Once again, we look at the possible detrimental effects on nearby properties. This is the truck route that the applicant proposed with the initial application, and it takes the trucks either through Locust Street or Lion Street in order to access the property. They estimate about 1,200 to 2,000 trucks would be needed to fill this area. And this is what staff was concerned with, was having this number of trucks going through this residential area. And the Public Works Director was also concerned about the impact the trucks would have on these streets. And he proposed an alternate route. The Public Works Director indicated that the truck routes in the city of Lawrence are actually for deliveries and things occurring within Lawrence. But if you're leaving the city of Lawrence, the truck route is to take the highway, the nearest highway, and exit the city, which is what he's having them do here. He's recommending to use Highway 4059 up to the north, and then turning on Highway 2440 until you get to East 1600 Road, which is a township road, and going to the south, and then coming over to the east on North 1650 Road, and then turning to the north on East 1550, or what is also for part of the way, North 9th Street. It's a more circuitous route, but it limits the impact on North Lawrence, and this is the route that staff would recommend that we use. We also look at the other factors, suitability of property to the uses to which it's restricted. It's currently not very suitable for agriculture due to the uneven terrain. And so with the filling and making it more level, it will be more of a gentle slope. It would be more suitable for agriculture and possibly more useful as open space. The subject property is not vacant. It's got the open space lake and the cabin. And the comparison of the effects of denial. Denial would have no really significant effect. The applicant would not be able to fill this area. It would have to remain as it is. And we talked with the township trustee for Grant Township to see if he had any concerns with using the township road for these trucks. And he indicated they had no concerns and that he wasn't interested in a maintenance agreement. He said the township's policy is if a road deteriorates, they're just turning them back to gravel, and he wasn't concerned. It's a very narrow road, but there's only one residence on it, and so the impact of allowing the trucks on the road he felt were acceptable. In staff's opinion, having the CUP for the fill would be acceptable and would be compatible with the nearby land uses as long as it was a temporary use, and the applicant estimated, in his opinion, would take about 5 years to complete, and so that's an expiration time frame we're recommending on the CUP. If it's not completed in that time, they could go back to the Board of County Commissioners and ask for extension. This shows, this is a detail from the grading plan or the CUP plan. It just shows how they propose to grade. It's very general. It may not exactly follow this shape, but they plan to be about 815 elevation here, up to about 820, just a steady rise up to the highway. The plan does note the reclamation of the site. Once it's been filled, they would grade it and apply topsoil and then seed it. And so these are the conditions that would be applied to the CUP. The truck route that I mentioned, using the highways up until you get to East 1600 Road. A requirement that only clean rubble as defined by KDHE would be used as fill, and this is noted on the plan. the reclamation, and also a note that this would be completed within 1 year of the completion of filling and grading. So it would be a part of the CUP. The CUP would not be completed until the property was seeded. The 5-year expiration date, and then they would submit a revised plan, which would list these conditions. And so staff's recommendation is for approval of the CUP with these conditions, and I believe the applicant is available today as well.
Thank you. Do we have the applicant here or representative of the applicant?
Hello again. I think Mary did a good job of generally explaining what we've got here. I did want to kind of reiterate a few things that I think sometimes people don't really know what that means. I guess the first one is clean rubble fill, not to be confused with like a construction and demolition debris landfill where you would have wood, you could have trees, other products. A clean rubble fill is well defined in a document produced by KDHE that says concrete that can have steel in it, rock, bricks, uncontaminated soil. So it is pretty limited in what you can put in a clean rubble fill. So hopefully that helps with that. Secondly, I guess we're okay with all the conditions except number 1. My client feels like he's kind of been segregated in that because his property is directly adjacent, he's in the county, but directly adjacent to the city, that both the truck routes that were illustrated are in the city, come to his property, and so in essence, he doesn't have a county road. You know, he has to immediately go on city streets. Both of the roads in North Lawrence are designated as a truck route. One for other companies, we got Century Lumber and ICL and those, so those were designated at one time. I think the Public Works Director was talking about, you know, abuse or wear and tear on the streets. Well, again, if they're designated as a truck route, yes, every street can be torn up and nobody likes the cost of repairs, but, you know, that's just a way of life. And you know, when you think about it, in a town of Lawrence, with debris of this type, the biggest generator is going to be within the city of Lawrence. Again, because of this facility and what it'll take, he's not going to pull anybody in from other counties, much like a sanitary landfill would, like Ham's, where they haul from Manhattan and a lot of places. This is just not unique enough that you're going to see anybody come from Kansas City down to bring material into this facility. There's been a question of, you know, well, what's its value? I believe its value is that, you know, every day in the construction world, we produce clean rubble fill that has no home and has to go somewhere. Well, the reason he's chosen this is because this hole was the result of the contractor taking material for the last expansion to the Kansas Turnpike Authority. So in essence, basically, instead of driving through town and bringing dirt to this site, they hauled it off-road from this site. So now, you know, looking at it in hindsight, he says, well, now I'd like to fill it back up. So that's his main objective. I think there's been a question of, you know, well, this is a revenue generating thing. Although Scott's gone, this type of facility, yes, you charge a dump fee, but generally all that is to offset the cost of keeping the ground level as you bring in material so that you can dump more there. That I think anybody would probably say, you know, unlike a sanitary landfill, it's not for a money-making proposition. He will obviously make some over and above what it costs to maintain it and then reclaim it. So that's an important factor. I looked at, and I don't want to say that traffic safety and that is an issue, but I looked on the Lawrence website, and one of the things in the GIS system is traffic counts, and I don't know if we can turn this on, Mary. You know, I just looked at when we're talking about, you know, 1,500, maybe 2,000 truckloads over a 5-year period. That equates to, in a 250 working days a year, 2 trucks a day. Now, granted, understand that, as we've said in the report, one day there may be 40 truckloads and then he may not see anything for 2 weeks. But just equating to it that, again, from looking from a safety standpoint is, is this a detriment to the city? Again, this is on straight from the GIS website. Hopefully you can see it. If not, we'll try and zoom in. There's some numbers in red, which are readings that the city of Lawrence took in 2013. The kind of orange, yellow are traffic counts taken by KDOT. Those are all daily totals. There's some here at the intersection that are blue and yellow that are peak times, but I don't know that we need to talk about that. But I looked at both the total traffic count, as you can see, on Locust, for example, anywhere from, 3,300 up to 5,500 trips a day on that street. So it's not, and again, I'm not trying to take anything away from North Lawrence and the safety aspect, but it is a well-traveled street with a lot of traffic. I think I've got a note there. There's a little more westbound traffic than eastbound, and I think that's probably, as you go to North Lawrence, there's probably a lot of people that go east on Elm, but when they come back, they have no choice but to come back on Locust. So there's some slight differences between east and westbound. I've even extended it over to 9th Street, which is Century Lumber, ICLB south of the tracks. 590 trips a day on that road. So again, well used by a lot of heavy trucks. Again, I feel like this is just kind of a continuation of the original LRM Industries and the Lawrence Sand Plant that was there for years and years. And up until the latest aerial that I had they were still in operation in 1995. So while it's been a while, it's not that it's been 50 years since anything's been done there. So great that we have approval. We're just concerned that, about the traffic of, hey, we don't want you coming down our street. Again, when I would venture to guess it's probably 95% is material that or waste that's being generated in the city of Lawrence and has to go somewhere. I think going around out on 24 and that way and back 1600, there'd be 2 train rail crossings. I didn't print it off, but there's about a 5,800 car per day traffic on 2440. I'm sorry, it's not 1,600. What's the east road? 1,600, okay. That any traffic you have is going to have to go back to 2440 and make a left-hand turn or a right-hand turn back onto a busier highway, unsignalized intersection at that point. So again, I guess that's the one condition we're kind of concerned about and believe that, he's kind of been singled out considering all the other operations in North Lawrence. Again, with his operations, he can't say exactly what the traffic count is going to be, but there's not a great market that, hey, just as quick as he opens it, here comes all the trucks. And it's obviously not anywhere close to where it probably was when the facility was operating as a sand plant and, there were several hundred truckloads a day going out of that sand plant. Maybe not that count, maybe that's a little high. But anyway, that's the condition that we're concerned about. We're okay with everything else and I'd like to see if we can have a further discussion about that. I'd be happy to answer any questions or the owner is here if you'd like to ask him questions as well.
Thank you. We may have some questions here in a minute. This is a public hearing item, so we'll open it up to public hearing. If there's anybody who'd like to speak on this, please come to the podium. Again, just a reminder, 3 minutes for individuals, 5 minutes for a group. Please give us your name and sign in if you would, and your address.
No paper up here.
Well, that makes it difficult.
Yeah. My name's Ted Boyle, president of North Lawrence Improvement Association. And one of the things that we're worried about, we've discussed this, is this truck traffic. Just because the sand plant, and I've lived in North Lawrence 72 years. I grew up in North Lawrence. I know about that sand pit. I swam in that sand pit. I still fish that sand pit. So this truck traffic deal, running these trucks through North Lawrence, through 2 residential streets. Locust, yeah, is a truck designated street, and also Lyons, but they are both residential streets. And ICL out there, I'm on the Citizens Advisory Board out there for 20 years, so I know how many trucks come down to ICL, and we might have 5 or 6 trucks a week. And so to start running these trucks, heavy, not just dump trucks, but big tandem barrel bed trucks down through North Lawrence, you know, our streets are in pretty good shape. We got a lot of small kids living in the residential neighborhood. Lion Street goes right past Lions Park, which is used baseball diamonds, tennis courts, pickleball, all of that type of thing. So to run those dump trucks through the heart of North Lawrence to do this, reclaiming this borough pit, which is no fault of the residents of North Lawrence, and why we should be put to these dump trucks passing through North Lawrence. So, and the route around the highway and then coming up 1600 Road. Now, I know as a kid, there's a farm, and it's part of a Nunemaker Ross farm there that's right behind Peak and ICL, the plant there, that when I was growing up, there was a road that went from 1600 Road to 1550 Road, which is 9th Street. And that road went all the way through from one street to the other. Over the years, the property owner closed that road off. It is still open. It is still open for their use. Now, if they want to use and fill that burrow pit, what they need to do is come down 2nd Street, 3rd Street, 24 Highway, 1600 Road, come up to 1600 Road, and just before you go to the railroad tracks, you can take a right-hand turn, and it'd take you directly to 1550 and take you right to the spot where they want to dump this rubble. So for these dump trucks to come through the heart of North Lawrence and tear our streets up and put our residents in danger, and also the children, no, we don't have that much truck traffic in North Lawrence. We really don't. The car traffic, what he talked about is workers, employees from ICL going to and from home up Locust Street. And so for these trucks to come through North Lawrence, it just isn't going to work. And I can assure you I will be going to the county commission on this and protest it. This is something that should go around North Lawrence and not through North Lawrence. And a perfect example of that is when they blew up the resident hall up on, what was it, Iowa there, and they were hauling off that clean rubble. Well, I can tell you this, where I live at 310 Elm, I know everything goes across that bridge. And I'll tell you what, I've called Public Works. I can't count how many times those trucks have not had the netting across their load. And the dust and debris that was flying off them trucks coming across the bridge, North 2nd, North 3rd, getting to the Jefferson County, Douglas County landfill. So what's it going to be like when they come through our neighborhood? And this is a great concern for the residents of North Lawrence. So unless they can get an ulterior route going around it and coming through there and access that road that goes from 1600 to 1550 Road, which brings them out right at the gate to the property they're going to dump that fill. So the other deal is, residents have also asked me, how do you guarantee that this is going to be a clean rubble landfill? And people over in Roanoke subdivision and the people that are just southwest of this proposed landfill, they're less than a quarter of a mile away. And the people in Roanoke, which are directly west of this proposed fill, they're all on well water, and they're questioning whether this so-called clean rubble landfill will pollute their wells or not.
Mr. Boyle,
yes.
we've reached our time limit.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other public comment? With that, we'll close the hearing and bring it back to the commission for discussion, questions, or motions. Commissioner Von Auken?
Mary, could you put the slide up of the proposed truck route, or your proposed truck route?
There.
Now, could you show the route that Mr. Boyle is referring to? That they go
I
up to?
believe it's, he may be able, whoops. Let me get rid of my, he may have to tell us, I think he's talking here. He said right before the railroad tracks. Is that the road you were talking about, that road that could be an alternative?
North of the railroad tracks, there's a residence right here. See this right here?
Uh-huh.
There's a road that goes right through here.
On the south side of that residence?
On the north side of this, north side of this railroad track. Used to be a county road, and we used to cut through there. And it was right here. See this star right here?
Okay.
And it comes right here.
But it's a private road now?
Well, I don't know if the county vacated or not. It used to be a county road when I was growing up there. It used to be a shortcut. And, you know, it looks like they could open it back up for the use of these dump trucks.
Maybe he's talking about this.
Do you know anything about that road, Mary?
No, when we were looking at this, we looked at our aerials, and we thought we saw what might be a road up here. It had a gate on it, but when we looked at it, it was really overgrown, and it didn't look like it was a road. We didn't check down here, and I don't know if that's a possibility.
It's closer to the railroad tracks, Mary.
Kind of where I'm pointing at now. Maybe you can't see it, but I'm right here, right before the railroad tracks. Maybe I'll get on the GIS, see if I can find it.
It's shown as a East Fork Station Lion Street on the
Mm-hmm.
Just continue Lion Street to the east.
It looks to be a private road.
It looks like it's the driveway to the farm, because we had suggested maybe using that and crossing through.
It used to go all the way through.
Mm.
Commissioner Von Auken, feel like you got your question answered?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Commissioner Britton?
Yeah, Mary, is there any, no equipment's going to be stored out there or anything like that? I mean, the trucks will come and dump it off and get out of there, and aside from the rubble, nothing else is staying out there. Is that accurate?
I imagine the land moving equipment would be there, you know, the bulldozer or whatever they'd be using. Would that be something you'd be keeping out there that's?
Yeah, and it would probably be moved in and out, because he doesn't own anything. That, correct me if I'm wrong, he was saying that, yes, there would be a piece of equipment there. It would probably be moved in as piles accumulate. They would come in and push it down, and you know, it may be there for a short period of time. While I'm here, I'll try and address a couple of the other questions. You know, as I mentioned, the clean rubble fill is a KDHE requirement. You know, again, because it's not regulated, you know, there's no absolute guarantee that somebody's not going to dump something in a vehicle. You know, but I think we all want to be a little conscious of Mother Nature and that.
I'm going to stop you here. If we have questions, we'll make sure and direct them. That was the
Okay.
public, I think, who had questions. We
Okay.
may bring
Did I
those up.
answer-
I appreciate it, but
Okay.
if we have them, you answered the first one, I think. Do you feel like you got that answered, Commissioner Britton?
Yeah.
Yeah. Commissioner Harrod?
Who owns the property south of the ponds? The Nunamaker Ross, is it the same family that owns the ponds? That you're talking about, the Lion Street goes through their property? Okay.
Any other questions, Commissioners?
This is somewhat on a different topic from the actual route. One of the conditions was that they would put it back to either brome or fescue. There may be state cost share money available to put it back to native grass. Does it really matter? I mean, does it have to be specifically spelled out to the type?
We could put brome or fescue or other grasses as approved by the NRCS, if you want to do that. Leave other options
Didn't
open
want
for
to see it
them.
restricted unnecessarily if there was another plan for that
Yeah.
land.
I think we were using that because that was their proposal.
Okay.
But, right, because we were just want to make sure it got done within a certain time frame. But we could also add that option that any other grass mix approved by NRCS would be allowed.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Now I have a question about KDHE. So I believe your statement was that you're using the definition of clean fill provided by KDHE. Was I correct to hear that you said there's no regulatory authority, so KDHE won't be approving or
No,
disapproving?
there's not a permitting process. As with the CND, no. I guess the only thing I can say is, it's a highly visible spot, at the turnpike, that it's going to be difficult to, bring a lot of other material in without everybody that goes down the turnpike seeing it. The grading plan that we have at 819, somewhere in the 20 to 30 foot lower than the top of the turnpike. Again, that's just the
Dump
rule.
truck bringing in soil, there's no way anyone's going to know whether it's contaminated or clean soil. So just seeing it from the turnpike's not going to tell
Yeah.
anybody anything.
Okay, don't go very far, because I didn't give you your rebuttal after public comment. And you tried, and I screwed up. So thank you for being respectful, and I'm sorry. Answer those questions now as you would like. Was there any other things you'd like to cover?
Forgot they were in that one, or now. No, the owners told me at one point that road did kind of cross his property. They've owned it forever. He says it's never been a county road. Now it may be a road. We did talk about that, but the road that is just north of the Century Lumber Yard is in part owned by Century Lumber, and they just have an agreement to let him go through that way. The property does go out to 1600 Road. That is his farming business, if you will. So basically, to send traffic kind of right through the middle of his daily operations doesn't seem appropriate to the owner. So I guess I've kind of answered the clean rubble question.
I just want to give you a chance to answer any questions. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Von Auken?
So your owner's concern about going up to US 40 and down is the left-hand turn, is it because it's a further route? Is it because he's making left-hand turns? What exactly is
I
his
think kind of all
concern?
of the above. If it's not somewhat convenient, he may go 5 years and have very little result of people bringing in material. It is not an improved road. It was an old chip and seal road. Grant Township basically said.
Now, which road are you talking about?
E1600.
E1600, okay.
Desired route. Was chip and seal at one point, and Grant Township basically said, we'll never chip and seal it again. If it deteriorates, it'll just be, kind of go back to gravel, and that's what it'll be. You know, with that route, you have at least one, if not, well, you would have two railroad crossings at that point. And again, then you're trying to put traffic back out on 2440 at an uncontrolled intersection. So it's, you know, while it sounds good, it's not the end-all answer to make everything great.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Britton?
Question for staff, in terms of looking at the two possible routes, was the relative safety of the longer route versus the shorter route a part of it, or was it mostly just sort of the impact on North Lawrence neighborhood and that kind of residential area? Because it does seem like the longer you're making the trucks drive and the more turns you make them take, I mean, there's maybe some safety impacts there. Is that part of what you guys were thinking about?
I think the main thing we looked at was the impact on North Lawrence and, you know, the safety of driving through the residential neighborhoods.
It was more that safety of going through residential neighborhoods than safety for a little bit longer route. Mr. Chairman, I might add on the KDHE aspect, because I want to make sure it gets its full attention. I've participated in investigations by KDHE on similar projects, and they will come out and investigate. If they find non-clean rubble, then the owner needs to resolve that issue. You may want to think about on condition number 2, setting up an annual inspection between the enforcement staff of either the county or us and KDHE to jointly together go out and walk the site and review, make sure that they're holding to the clean rubble aspect of it. I think that would be fair in this situation. Because as far as I know, they will participate with us, you know, as long as it's not a burdensome program of review, which 1 year or annually doesn't seem like it would be, that we just go out there and they inspect the materials and make sure that it's still clean.
Thank you. Commissioner Strucker?
Well, I'm certainly concerned with the integrity and chemical composition of the fill that would be included. I don't find that to be a particular issue with this application for a clean rubble fill. That would be a case, you know, KDHE regulations apply to all these facilities, and they are useful, and we do have a lot of construction waste that does need to be deposited. To me, I'm balancing the effect of having trucks running through North Lawrence on residential streets versus the comparatively longer and extra turns required to take the northern route. And to me, I think the trucks need to go around on 1600 Road. I think that's a lesser problem. I think the problem of these trucks, these larger trucks running through North Lawrence would be a much larger problem than for the owner whose trucks need to go around a little farther. So I would support the first condition.
Yes, I'd like to echo what Commissioner Struckoff just said. If I don't understand why we would be willing to put the residents in a residential area at inconvenience or risk over the inconvenience or risk of the applicant. It seems to me that's part of the burden as an applicant that he bears in this, not the residents in a residential area. I would not approve this recommendation unless we do go around in the suggested route that Mary has proposed, the staff's proposed.
So you're supportive, just want to make sure I'm clear, you're supportive of it as it's written here.
I'm sorry, yeah,
Is that
it's
correct?
kind of muddled. Yes,
Okay.
I am. In the 1600 road to US Highway 40 and down.
Now, echo that comment, I would approve it with the recommendations as in the staff report. And I would like to add some sort of review by KDHE to address his concern about the potential for possible contamination from unclean fill to neighboring wells. As far as the safety, a lot of those houses are close to the street, and running these large dump trucks through North Lawrence is, I think, has more risks to anybody than to have the trucks go over the railroad tracks twice, both of which are, I mean, you know, the railroad tracks are there and they're both marked. And that left turn onto the highway, although it might be inconvenient, but we're only hearing it might be 1 or 2 trucks a week, or possibly, you know, many trucks in one day. So, you know, that's a lesser inconvenience than I see running these trucks through the heavily populated neighborhood. And I would just, along with Mr. Boyle, I think these old truck routes, just as an aside, these truck routes that are currently going through North Lawrence should probably be re-examined at some time, because that truck traffic has dropped off, and perhaps they're not needed, and all the traffic should be going on this new identified route and take those heavy trucks off of these busy or highly populated streets through North Lawrence. But that's not part of tonight, that's just an aside. But I would approve the recommendations of staff as listed and adding that review by KDHE.
So that starts to sound like a motion there. Commissioner Carpenter, would you like to make that motion?
But let's see if everybody else has comments first.
Commissioner Britton?
Question for staff on the renewal potential for the CUP. If 5 years go by and it's basically half full, I would imagine that our successors, or some of the new folks here who will still be here, hopefully, would be pretty much like, yeah, we're going to reapprove this, because otherwise we've just got a half-full clean rubble fill that's not, I mean, is that kind of the practical situation in 5 years if that happens?
We address it in condition number 4,
Mm-hmm.
that the approval may be extended by the county commission if a written request showing good cause is submitted prior to the expiration date. So we've actually recommended, for that very reason, to sort of bypass the planning commission, go right to the county commission for good cause. Our recommendation on a 5-year expiration is just that we didn't want a perpetual, long-term, aesthetically displeasing site here. We wanted to get it filled up, put back to where it was, and then expire.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I guess I'm just wondering if, I guess the practical effect of starting this is that it's going to need to, the truck traffic, whatever it may be, and all that is going to need to continue until it's full, because we're not going to want a half-full rubble fill that could only be, you know, that can't be planted over and all that kind of stuff. So I guess I just wanted to bring that up as a, I guess it'll be in the minutes for 5 years from now. If for some reason it needs to be removed, maybe hopefully it'll be all filled up and looking good by then. I drive past this twice a day on I-70 and look forward to sort of watching the progress and seeing how it looks in the end. Good cause is something that often, you know, will be defined somewhere. Do we have any definition that would apply to good cause?
We don't, I think, but this just gives us that exercise that if it's either not going along the well for the applicant or the neighbors, or it's not done anything in 5 years, then we've got at least ability to expire it, and for good reasons. We also have an ability to very easily extend it. And the good cause shown is that I think mostly that we're pretty close. Give us another couple of years or something, and we'll get it done.
Okay. And then I just have a couple comments, basically, that I agree with what Commissioner Carpenter and Commissioner Von Auken have said. You know, the left turn onto the highway could be problematic for, you know, I can see some other cars getting surprised by that coming into Lawrence on Highway 40, you know, from the east traveling west. But that's kind of a concern, you know, anywhere when you're on those undivided 2-lane highways and you're not dealing with on-ramps and things like that. So I do think that the route that goes around the residential areas and not through it is is the appropriate route. And then the other question I had, Commissioner Willie, I was looking at something when you asked your question about the grass type. Was the answer that it could be native grasses, or that there was no it could be something other than brome or fescue?
Right, we could add a note saying, brome, fescue, or other grass mixes approved by NRCS, so if they wanted a different mix, that it wouldn't have to be those two types.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I'm supportive of that too. So,
Commissioner Kohler?
Add my comments in support of this recommendation as written with the conditions, based on the discussion we've had about the traffic and trying to alleviate that from going through the residential components of North Lawrence. I think it is appropriate as conditioned to take that traffic outside of this. Also, like the suggestion of an annual review to make sure that we're getting the appropriate type of rubble into that area. And I also just want to mention that, and Mary brought this up, but when they took the dirt and sand out of that area, that's a time we should have addressed how we would remediate that and how the owner would do that. And so we find it at the tail end having to come up with a plan where, for future cases, we'd like to look at not only how the sand and gravel or whatever is coming out of there is getting out of there, but also how you're going to remediate it. So I think that's a lesson for all of us.
So my comments are all supported as has been outlined, and I think I agree with all the comments made. I don't think I need to reiterate them. I am supportive of the one-year review. I would like to point out that, Scott, this is one of the first time I can ever imagine you guys have saying we have the ability to enforce it. Let's do it. Let's do more. Usually we're trying to over-enforce things, so thank you for that. So very supportive of it. Still looking for a motion. Commissioner Britton?
I'll make a motion, and really quickly, for the benefit of our new commissioners, so you don't think the fact that we are each talking over each other and saying, I like what he said and I like what she said. We try and do that for the minutes, just so that we're making an adequate record of our individual views, if we can, for the governing bodies when they look at the proceedings. Because they'll read the minutes and they'll go, well, why did you ask this question? Or I'm glad that you brought this up, or whatever. So sometimes when we're talking too much, or it seems like we're talking too much, we're just trying to make that record of what our thoughts are as we go along. So with that said, I will move that we recommend approval of the CUP request for clean rubble landfill at 1736 East 1550 Road, subject to the conditions listed in the staff report, and to the amendment to condition 3 that would allow other approved grasses, and I can't remember the acronym that Mary used. NRCS approved grass seed, as well as the addition of a condition requiring a staff inspection in conjunction with KDHE on an annual basis to determine that the rubble is in fact clean. Was there one other thing? I got the grass.
I think you're good.
Okay. That's my motion.
Motion by Commissioner Britton. Second by Commissioner Struckhoff.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Should we hear from the applicant or Mr. Grove about the proposed annual inspection, about what impact that may have on, and is that over and above whatever is normally done by KDHE?
Suppose we could? Yeah.
That was explained to me, they inspect this feedlot every year. If the county has some procedure or something with KDHE, or, it may be on if somebody sees something or makes a complaint that, but he has no objection to however you might word that, or, once he does this, they can come at any time, so it's.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just add to that comment, it protects the landowner also. because you're not going to be able to know exactly what's in every truck, and it would allow you to know if something was put on the property that shouldn't be there by these dump trucks.
We swim, our kids and grandkids all swim there too, so we don't want to put something in there.
Excellent point.
But I'm not concerned about it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. There's no further discussion. All those in favor, raise your hands. Passes unanimously 9-0. We have one more item. I would like to power through this item. Does anybody need a break? Can we make it? All right.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Item number 6. Hi, Sandy. As Sandy gets set up, thank you, Mr. Boyle, for coming and speaking to us. Appreciate it.
Had it set up so Mary needed it. Good evening. My name is Sandy Day. I'm also one of the planners. The item that you have before you this evening, this last item, really kind of falls into the ministerial category for you. It's a preliminary plat that was considered by this body in 2013. The approval was granted for a period of 24 months, and at which time the applicant either has to reapply either for an extension or to renew that preliminary plat unless they have submitted a final plat for this property. The original approval of the project had no conditions to it. It's a single lot with interior access for future residential development, probably medium density residential development. Your application included a concept plan of what the applicant may choose to do in the future. So your action this evening is to reapprove that preliminary plat that will give the applicant additional time to continue with the planning efforts. There are a number of public improvements that have to be made and designed for this project. There may be a timing issue that the applicant is here to talk to you about as well. So this is the preliminary plat. It would have an extension of 28th Street extended for some distance to the east with another public street connection through the property, creating 2 lots. And I'll answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you. We may hear in just a bit. The applicant like to visit with us yet again this evening.
You're going to get tired of me. Sorry for those newcomers, and you won't see me this much. No, I guess what happened is between the owners and I, time flies when you're having fun, and it just kind of came up as they had somebody kind of spark some interest in the property, and then it was like, wait a minute, we missed it by a month, and then we started the conversation with Scott. Appreciate him helping because it was, no conditions, unanimous approval. None of the regulations have changed that would warrant it coming back, and so basically it saved us a couple months to get that extension. Just FYI, the owner's been working pretty hard with the city at other people with low-income housing. I mean, they're both participants in Lawrence Home Builders, and, they just, every time that comes up, it kind of is a speaking point. So we appreciate that, your consideration.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. No, this is not a public hearing item. But it doesn't look like we have anybody from the public. Is there anyone around that post? Oh, no, I think we're clear.
You never know.
You never know.
We did send notice to all the property owners, so we treated it as if it were new.
Great. Thank you. Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Colbert?
Sandy, would the extension of this preliminary plat be for another 24-month period?
Yes. You're basically reapproving it,
Okay.
approving it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Motions? Go ahead.
I move that recommend approval of the preliminary plat for Going South Edition.
Commissioner Struckoff with the motion. Commissioner Britton with the second. If there's no further discussion, all in favor, raise your hand. Passes unanimously, 9-0.
I think we're going to try to talk about possible PC training dates. Commissioner Britton at least can give us maybe the month you're thinking about hosting
Thank you.
a social hour, and then we can hone in from there.
I think, what were you talking about? Late August, or I would say,
September maybe even?
yeah, late September is actually what I would prefer, probably. That gives us both the, well, we would have 3 full meetings for new folks to know all the questions they want to ask, or
So-
why in the world do we do it this way or that way?
Yeah, yeah, you will have a few months under your belts. So why don't we just send a little doodle poll out, unless you have a date that you want us to drive in?
No, I only have a date that I want us not to do.
Sure, what's that?
Which is, let me look really quick here. The weekend of, let's see, September 17th and 18th, I believe we'll be out of town.
Okay.
So the weekend before that, I guess, looking at maybe the 9th or the 23rd, and hopefully not the 30th, because I imagine our meeting is on the 26th that month.
So 9th or 23rd
Uh-huh.
weekend, so we can do a quick poll on those
Yeah,
2
and
days.
see which
get-
one of
and
those.
Get that back and let everybody know, but that's typically a Friday, full-day Friday here in City Hall, usually in this room, of some orientation/training, and then we retire to what Bruce, Commissioner Lee started.
Some people
as
may
a-
still go to Bruce's house just out of habit.
He doesn't live there anymore, however.
Maybe
That's why we go there.
So, it's a great time, it's good. We usually, bring our other halves and have a good time to get to know each other and have some social time.
Yeah, definitely get it on the calendar for you and your spouse, partner.
Sounds like
Buddy.
a voice of experience that didn't.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
The first couple times, yeah, I didn't understand that you were supposed to, and then I'd show up and people would be like, oh, Katie didn't want to come, huh? She did.
So, we'll work the next week or two to get that lined up so you can get it on your calendars.
Anything else, Scott?
The other thing is, we have typically assigned 1 or 2 commissioners to work with us on that day for subject matter and kind of agenda. So if you want to do that, usually it's probably one of the more seasoned commissioners that kind of get a feel for what that is. Might be a nice vice chair responsibility.
Yeah, I can help out.
I'd be happy to help out with that.
Okay. Good.
Anybody else
You've
want to
got
join
some
in on the fun?
volunteers.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
3 right there.
Who was it?
Struck off Kelly and Britton.
All right, great, thank you.
There's nothing else? Motion to adjourn? So moved. We're adjourned.
Boom.
It's still light.
8:30.
Don't get used to this, new commissioners. This is a gift.
Today? I didn't know that.
That was a short one.